Thank you, Kate, and thank you to Resource Rising Stars for hosting us here today. Ausgold, I guess the recent history of Ausgold, and I've only been involved with the company since early June of this year, so about 6 months, it was a relatively large, sort of significant reboot and refresh of the company. Quite a significant change at the board level. We've brought myself joined along with two other non-executive directors, Adrian Goldstone and Mark Turner, both very seasoned project developers in their own right. Adrian's a processing engineer, Mark is a mining engineer. Subsequently, we've appointed Paul Whedon as a non-executive director with a lot of geological experience. Paul was my VP exploration at Ausgold, so he's a very seasoned geologist. So the board of Ausgold is essentially new, very much a project development focus, and that was driven by some of the larger shareholders who've been involved with Ausgold for a couple of years and really wanted to see the company really focus on delivering the Katanning Gold Project, and that's what we're doing. As part of that refresh, we went out and did a financing. We raised 38 million Aussie dollars, largely from international institutions. It was a new story for a lot of people offshore, and we felt that bringing in some new blood onto the register was a good idea, and that raising went very well for us. As part of that, we did a share consolidation 10-for-1 just to neaten the register up, make it a little more appealing to some of those international investors. That went well for us. And so far, over the last 6 months, the reception's been very good. As you can see there, in great shape, still have over $20 million in the bank. That was after making a $10 million acquisition of some really critical farming land, some freehold land in the vicinity of the project, which I'll talk a little bit about. So I think for me, the best way, or certainly the way I like to look at Ausgold and what attracted me to the company, was that there is a large existing resource base down at the Katanning Gold Project. There's a project here. If you look at it from my perspective, there's a gold mine waiting to be developed, and that really underwrites what I think is an attractive base case. So if there's nothing else, there's going to be a 10-year mine life. We've got a feasibility study underway which will deliver in about 6 months' time a 10-year mine life, circa 120,000 ounces of gold, ballpark estimates around 300 million Aussie to build that. So that's an attractive proposition in its own right. I think what really sort of opens up the potential, certainly from my perspective, is that the company controls over 4,000 square kilometres of tenure. So this is 4,000 square kilometres of a recently identified greenstone belt. The Geological Survey of Western Australia only started drawing greenstones on their geological map in 2021 around Katanning. Prior to that, it was all mapped as granite, with the only exception being Boddington, Australia's largest gold mine located just to the west. So early mover advantage was one tick in Ausgold's favour. They've used that to really build a commanding land position. If you look at a lot of successful stories, certainly in Western Australia in recent years, it's been tying orphaned, stranded resources to existing infrastructure. Now, at Ausgold, like to do things a little differently. The actual land tenure's already been consolidated at Ausgold. Now it's time to build the processing facility. So a little bit changed, but similar direction. So basically tying processing infrastructure with large upside from exploration down the track. Just to give you a sort of locate you can see the project there down to the southeast of Perth. It's down about 3.5 hours down the Albany Highway. Great location, great infrastructure. The town of Katanning, a town of about 5,000 people, is located 30 kilometres away. That's where we're looking to build our accommodation village. The town is very keen to see their economic base diversified, to see the activity and the families and the new jobs that will be created by building the Katanning Gold Project. So we're really pushing on an open door in Katanning, which is very nice. As you can see there too, it was a small mining operation, so this is not really a restart because that was quite a small undertaking back in the mid-90s, but it is disturbed. And as you can see, I think from the photo, we're operating in freehold farming land. This is broadacre cropping, not a lot of sort of ecological value, not a lot of remnant forest or woodlands. There are some small patches on the tenure, and we're being very careful with our project footprint to ensure that we don't disturb those. But by and large, from an ecological perspective, this is very degraded land as it's been intensively cropped for over around 80 years or so. Some of you might be familiar with the name Ausgold. The company and the Katanning project has been around for a while. As I mentioned at the start, there's been a pretty significant reboot and refresh and refinancing of the company, and I think there's still, maybe some lingering doubts out there that Ausgold might be a bit of a show-me story. And we don't run away from that. We sort of look to that, and we've actually sort of tried to put this slide up as a bit of a scorecard for us to put up and then be measured against. The 5 key items that we're focusing on there are the definitive feasibility study, permitting, land access, resource growth, and delivery. And I'll take you through each of those in sort of more detail. Feasibility study is well on track. As I mentioned, it's due for delivery sort of around June next year, so late Q2, late calendar Q2. We're envisaging a 10-year mine life, around 120,000 ounces of gold. All indications from our preliminary schedules indicate that the grade is a little bit higher in the early years. So the first 3 to 4 years will be higher grade, delivering higher output and really improve the bankability and the payback of that process. We're designing it initially with a 3.6 million tonne per annum throughput, but we have one eye to the future, and that's led us to design a relatively straightforward expansion to around 5.5 million tonnes per annum. That will require some exploration success, but that's the plan, is to build that sort of redundancy in, or future-proof the operation, as it were. We've recently appointed a new project director, Royce McCauslane, very experienced. He just came off doing the feasibility study to integrate Sabodala and Massawa in Senegal. I was involved in the original construction and development of Sabodala, so I was very familiar with that project. And he's really hit the ground running and doing a great job for us. We will hit that deadline of June next year. Permitting and approvals process. We recently appointed a new manager approvals and permitting, Troy Colley. Troy joined us from Mount Gibson Iron, so he's had 10 years experience there in the Midwest, permitting, operating and closing various open pit iron ore projects, so a lot of experience there on the ground. He's been fantastic. He's really sort of injected a lot of energy and enthusiasm into that process. We're sort of improving and extending our outreach to the community, where next week we'll be in Katanning opening a shop front in the main street to really be a focal point for the company, a centre for anyone in the community, any stakeholders to come connect with us. If there's any concerns, if they want to know more about what we're planning to do, what opportunities, what employment, training opportunities will be about, or what impact we'll have, we're there and we're going to be very accessible to them. I think that's an important step for us in our attempts to build and continue to maintain social licence. We've set up a community reference group as well to sort of go out and proactively seek input from the community. That's being chaired by a former chairman of the EPA in WA, so a very credible source there. So we're very serious about this. We feel that we need to go out and engage and make sure people understand what we're doing. And with Indigenous engagement as well, important to note that this area of the southwest of Western Australia is subject to the Southwest Land Settlement. So this has been settled from a native title claim. We are operating predominantly on freehold, so native title does not really exist. It's been extinguished, or the claims have been extinguished. We are still keen to work with the local traditional owners around cultural heritage management, and we anticipate moving that to a more formal footing over sort of the next sort of 6 months or so, but and engaging with that important group of stakeholders. Land access, as I mentioned, largely freehold land. As part of the recent financing, the $38 million, we spent just under $11 million in acquiring just over 1,000 hectares of freehold land. That's the area that you can see on this map shaded in green. And that was really important for us because that extended our land position off our historic mining leases. And that was a very important de-risking aspect of the project for us. What that's allowed us to do, we have full ownership of the area that's in the first couple of years of production. And more importantly, it's given us enough footprint to site our processing infrastructure, tailings facilities, waste dumps, etc. So we've got the land that we need. That was an important step. As you can see there, the area in red is granted mining leases. We do need to come to a compensation arrangement with the owners, the underlying landholders in the region. We'd like to do that through a negotiated outcome. If we can't get to a sensible outcome there, we will have the Warden's Court in Western Australia determine that compensation. We hope that we don't think it will get to that, but we do have that sort of looking to be reconciled or finished by around the middle of next year. Next slide, and this is really, I guess, sort of down to the growth, and this is touching on my earlier comment of what attracted us to the company in the first place, is really that large 4,000 square kilometres. We've recently initiated a 19,000 metre RC drilling program, and that falls into four main buckets. The first is in and around the central zone, that's the primary sort of contributor to the resource, that's the majority of the reserves. And the idea there is to do some closer space drilling, so when we come time to finance this in the second half of next year, we can look our financiers in the eye and tell them that we're very confident about this and that we've got the first couple of years very tightly drilled. I think that's important in the context of some recent deals that maybe didn't go so well from a financing perspective. We think we're going to address that and be a little more sort of proactive in addressing that on the front foot. The second aspect here, and this is probably our most immediate source of potential resource growth, is to the south of the project. And what we're looking at is a project called Lucan. It's immediately south along strike of the main central zone, and we've got extensive air core drilling there, a very large soil anomaly. It's now time to wheel out the RC rig to start seeing if we can wrap a resource around that. So that drilling is about to commence in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be break for Christmas. But I would keep an eye out for that if you're interested to see, because this is where, as I mentioned, the most immediate opportunity for resource expansion. We think that we've got a gold district on our own here in Katanning or in the southwest. This is going to be one of the first steps to really validate that thesis that there is a significant gold district over and above what we already have on the books to date. The third piece of the puzzle is starting to step away from Katanning. Our first target here is one called Grasmere. I'm not sure if you can see it on the map, but it's just to the southwest of Katanning. It's an 8 kilometre long soil anomaly. Again, lots of air core drilling, looks really good. This is a very good prospect in our view of a Katanning lookalike. So this has scale, it's got a lot of real estate, we could potentially fit a large resource in here. It's now time to do the RC drilling to see if we can start, again, to wrap around some resource metrics around this. And then the fourth piece of that, or the fourth stage of the exploration is due for the first quarter of next year, and that's on our regional targets. The idea here, again, trying to validate that large land position. The company has had some small programs along the Stanley Thrust, sort of north and northeast of Katanning. Had some very good results, as you can see there, or maybe you can't, very small, but sort of 8 to 9 metres of up to 30 grams a tonne. So the idea here is, again, do a more fulsome drill program, start to see if we can't see the potential for resources and satellite deposits using the extensive road network in the region to bring in high-grade feed, high-grade sweeteners for that sort of baseline at the Katanning Gold Project. This is, again, high-impact drilling that we're really looking forward to doing, that we'll have out sort of in the first quarter of next year. So, in terms of, I touched on what we're doing, definitive feasibility study, June next year. Drilling is underway. This is our prime drilling season. We'll be running through until about March, April, so you can expect to see assays starting in the coming weeks, running all through sort of into the second quarter of next year. Kicking off, the land access, I mentioned that, compensation determination around that, and then all of it gearing up for a final investment decision around the end of the year, next year, 2025. And that was a key part of our financing. We wanted to put enough capital into the company to be able to take us through those series of milestones and be presented with a final investment decision in a little over 12 months' time. So, in closing, the company, we have a great project, a great land position. We've got sufficient funding to take it through the journey to a very important milestone at that final investment decision, and we're building the team with the people. So we've actually, a lot of new change at the board, a lot of relevant experience, starting to build the senior management of the team as well to take us not just through feasibility and permitting, but ultimately into development and operation. And I think I'm about to run out of time, so that's it. So we'll be outside if you have any questions. Thank you very much.